beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Crystal, this is Bond Book Reviews, and today we're going to be jumping into my 24 books for 2024. Now, if you saw last week, I went through my 23 books in 2023 and you saw that I absolutely failed terribly. So this year I've tried to be selective in my choices. I picked a lot of books that are already on my Bookemon TBR, like my planned TBR for different prompts I have to hit for that. And then there's also someone here that are just like, I know we're going to be 5-star reads that I want to try and prioritize. I want to get more 5-star reads this year. I was very disappointed last year with some of my selections. So let's just dive on in. If you haven't already, give this video a big thumbs up at the end if you like what you see. Subscribe down below so that you can join and see more of my content. I put out bookish content every week. Try and do reading sprints at least once a fortnight if I can. So let's jump in. This is in absolutely no particular order whatsoever. It's just 24 books that I have grabbed off my shelf that just grabbed into me, or that I knew were already like on my radar. So firstly, we are carrying over from last year, Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Will it get through? Will it pass in 2024? It didn't pass in 2023, and that is honestly because every single time I went to pick this up, I was so intimidated. This became something that was on my radar back in 2022, I want to say, or very early in 2023, like just before I filmed my 23 books in 2023. And it was because Mel from Mel Reads said that this was like one of her faves, really enjoyed it. And I know that she loves epic fantasies, and epic fantasies sometimes intimidate me, but this one I think was going to do really good things. It sounds fantastic. All I really know is that this is like a nun who becomes an assassin or something like that. I don't really know. It's like a convent. Oh my god, did I just say that? I'm so sorry, God. A convent of people who are raised to be killers. So it sounds really cool. It's not too thick for a fantasy, so I hope it doesn't have too much epicness unnecessarily. So that's my first one. The next one on this list is Set on You by Amy Lee. This one is a romance. I figured romance was my thing last year. I've reached for it, so why not throw one on here that I know I'm probably going to reach for anyways, to hopefully give me an easy success. All I know about this is it follows an influencer who kind of is on the plus size. I hate that terminology, but she's trying to shatter gym stereotypes, and then she meets this firefighter guy, and then romance ensues. We'll see what happens. I've heard both good and bad things about it. I thought I would give myself another positive win on here and put Jade War by Fonda Lee on here. I am doing a read along for this series, so it's kind of inevitable that I'm going to read this book unless I completely fail that read along. But once I'm doing a reading challenge with other people, I find myself more likely to do it. So this one is kind of like a guarantee success. Jade War by Fonda Lee is the second book in a series. It is the Jade Bone series. First in the series is Jade War. No, the first in the series is Jade City. I have just finished it, really enjoyed it. It was 5 stars. It's very much, as they describe it, a Godfather epic fantasy. Without going into too much detail and giving too much things away, it's really difficult to go into what the second book will be about without ruining the first book. So if this sounds kind of like an epic fantasy Godfather type book that you would want to read, go check out the series, you might be interested. Next on this list is a book called Truly, Darkly, Deeply. This is by Victoria Selman. It was on 2 TBRs last year in 2023, and I figured it's time for me to try and give myself a reason to prioritize it. It's a thriller that was gifted to me kindly from one of my followers, and I want to prioritize reading books from you guys, so this is going on here. Next we have Lifelike by Jay Kristoff. I get to meet Jay Kristoff soon, and I'm super excited, and so I want to read more of his backlist titles. I'm currently starting Empire of the Damned. I have an arc. I'm super excited to jump back into that world after rereading Empire of the Vampire in January, and so Lifelike by him is obviously a very different type of story than Empire of the Vampire, but it's just keeping me in that Jay Kristoff world until I finally get to meet him. So I've read more of his backlist. So Lifelike is getting here on this series, on this list, so it's a priority for me. Another one on here that I think is going to be an easy win, I don't know, I say that now, but it's such a thick book, is the second book in the House of Sky is the second book in the Crescent City series, House of Sky and Breath. I don't want to do a reread of the first one. I need to read this one before I can read the third one. So I found a summary video of the first one on YouTube that I'll watch before I dive into the second book in the series. I've been holding out from doing this because it's just so big and there's so much hype and epicness around it that I just was so almost intimidated. And I know it's really weird for me to be like, hey, I'm gonna pick this up when there's hype around the third one. But now I feel it's the right time because everyone's talking about the third one. So none of these spoilers will come up, hopefully. So this is where I'm gonna read. Is the year that the new one is coming out is when I read this one. You would have seen this next one in a recent haul, and that is Major Detours by Zachary Sergi. This is a choose your own adventure kind of middle grade, I think. Middle grade? No. YA, choose your own adventure, puzzle solving thing. You could read it start to finish like it's meant to be, or the choose your own adventure style. I'm very excited for this one. I've been looking for a choose your own adventure story that is an adult. I wanted that Goosebumps experience, but for adult writing. I wanted that Goosebumps experience, but for adults. So I'm hoping that this gives me that. I have such high expectations for this, so I hope it doesn't let me down. Next on this list is because Paige made me do it, and that is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. I loved Octavia E. Butler when I last read their work. And so I have very, very high expectations for this book. Paige has it as one of her faves. So I think I'm gonna love it because we have very similar styles in terms of what we like and what we don't like. So yeah, I'm expecting really, really good things. Octavia is a phenomenal writer. I've absolutely loved the 2 books of hers that I have read. So fingers crossed. I'm trying to put books on here that I A, want to reach for, and B, I assume are gonna be 5-star predictions. So this is almost like a 24 books in 2024 / 5-star prediction. And next on this is another backlist because this is how I read. It's called The Martian by Andy Weir. You guys know this story. This is the movie cover. I got this in a free little library near my house. It looks less chunky this way. I like the movie cover, but the writing is kind of small. This I loved the movie of. I am not usually one, once I've read the movie, to go back and read the book, but this intrigues me enough that I really, really want to. And I've heard fantastic things. So if you don't really know, this follows a gentleman who goes into space. He's disconnected from his entire space party. They all die. He loses communication with Earth, and he has to try and learn to survive. He manages to grow his own food and everything until he's able to get safely back to Earth. You don't know whether or not he's gonna make it back or not during the whole story. So sorry if I've just spoiled the whole premise, but I assume most people have either read this or seen the movie by now. The next one on here is one that I think I just need to put on here to force myself to read it, and that is Breathe by Sarah Crossan. This is not one I've heard of and seen a lot of people talk about. It's from 2000 and I want to say 16. It's a pretty old YA. 2012, even later. It is a dystopian YA fantasy sci-fi. I don't even know. Pretty much oxygen levels plunge and we have a treeless world. And so there's a lottery that decides who will live inside the pod, and you have to figure out who's living in the pod and everyone else is going to slowly suffocate. I just think it sounds so epically insane and also so close to home with what's going on right now with all global warming and things like that. So I think it'll be really, really interesting and a perfect time to read it. Another one that has been on multiple TBRs and has not been read, are you seeing a trend here, is Black Widows by Kate Quinn. This one follows a man who has died. He has 3 wives. We don't know which one of his wives killed him. This whole story is the premise of figuring that out. I realize I'm putting a lot of chunky books on this TBR, which is probably the worst decision I could make. But I am putting on here Kate Forsyth. This is Bitter Greens. This is one of her backlist titles. I had never really heard too much about Kate Forsyth. One of my Instagram friends recommended her to me, so I grabbed a couple. They were sitting on my shelf, and I've noticed recently new titles coming out from them that interest me. So I figure I may as well start some of the backlist before I go and buy all their new titles because I already have them on my shelf. So this one for me, I think is a retelling of a very, very old fashioned story from Louis the 15th, really quite old. I don't really know anything about it other than the fact that she does really, really good retellings. So I'm just gonna jump into this one pretty blind. I think it's kind of a cross between historical fantasy and historical fiction and fantasy. So historical fantasy maybe would be what this falls under. And even though I read none of the historical fictions that I put on last year, I'm chucking another one on this year, and this is The Women by Kristen Hanna. You're probably going, Crystal, this isn't out yet. Yes, I've been lucky enough to get an arc of this. It doesn't come out until, actually, when you're seeing this, it will be out already. But this is the new Kristen Hanna. Absolutely love her. I've been so intimidated by this, but so excited to read. And so I think I'm gonna cry as much as I did when I read Four Winds, but this is the next one that I'm gonna be putting on this list to prioritize reading and knowing that I'm gonna love, because it's gonna be 5-star because it's Kristen Hanna and she can do no wrong. I know nothing about this other than the fact that it's Kristen Hanna, and that's all you're gonna get from me because I love going into hers blind. Another one that has been on 2 TBRs and not read is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Anthony really wants to watch this movie. I refuse to watch it until I have read the book. It is so skinny. I could get this read, but I've just avoided it. So we're putting it on here to prioritize it. All I know is that this is a very, very sad story about a boy who pretty much, I think his like parents like abuse him, or they're dying, or they're dead, and like he doesn't know how to deal with that, and so he like imagines something that appears at his window. I could be very, very wrong in that. That's just me pulling thoughts out of my head of the amount of times that I've seen this talked about. And I'm probably mixing books up. You never want to trust me for synopsises. I'm usually 90% wrong, 90% of the time. One that's on here that was gifted from another one of my followers, this was Mel from a book fiend named Mel, is Library of Unwritten by AJ Hackworth. This one to me will hit a couple of Bookemon prompts, so that's even better. But I just know that it's gonna be that perfect kind of like mix between genres that I'm gonna need at some point. So I think it's gonna be a good one to have on this option list. I don't really know much about it other than, again, it's on Pages favorites list. And I trust her wholeheartedly with what to read. And it's also one of Mel's favorites as well. So the fact that this has been sent to me by both of them, and they're my besties and some of my faves from this YouTube community, I feel like it's time I finally give it a chance. One of my favorite genres obviously is thriller. If you've been around for a while, you know that that is my go-to. I haven't read a lot in 2023, so if you've been here only for 2023, you probably don't believe me on that. But prior to 2023, when I ended up in my weird like romance chunk of time, I loved thrillers. I read them probably at least 2 a month. And one of my favorite thriller writers and one of my favorite thriller books of all time is Hunted by Gabrielle Berg-Moser. And Gabrielle Berg-Moser released a new book in August of 2023 called The Caretaker. And I was so distracted by romance, I didn't get a chance to read it. So it has to go on the 24 books for 2024. All I know about this is it's an isolated like ski resort thriller, and it's by Gabrielle Berg-Moser. I have heard enough, that is all I need to know. This one was on my TBR before he died. I want that noted, but I obviously want to try and prioritize reading Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Things by Matthew Perry since the unfortunate, untimely death. I was very interested in reading this before that happened. I already read, where is it? Generation Friends in 2023 and absolutely adored it. So I'm very excited to pick another thing up and kind of stay in that world. Another one that I'm carrying over from 2023 to 2024 is Elysium Girls. I just cannot get over this cover. I cannot get over how epic this sounds. Pretty much there is like a game that happens every so often, and once they show up, if you haven't done what you need to do, then you have to like go towards this challenge and you may die. That's all I know. It sounds epic, it sounds crazy, it sounds so different than what I have read for a long time. And this cover, that's all I have to say. Kate Quinn, loved everything that I have read from Kate Quinn so far. And they released the Diamond Eye, like 2022, I wanna say. I all my dates blank into one. This came out in, yes, 2022. I was kind of right. And I have wanted to read it. I found a copy in my free little library. I finally have a copy. Kate Quinn is one of my favorite historical fiction writers. So I'm putting it on here because I know it's gonna be a 5-star. I know I'm gonna love it, and this way it comes to my attention. Another one of my favorite authors is Jack Heath. When I looked at Jack Heath's Goodreads, because, you know, I stalk my favorite authors' Goodreads to see what they like to read, to get ideas. One of the ones that they had reviewed was The Rook by Danielle O'Malley. And then I happened to go into an op shop and find both book 1 and book 2 in this series sitting there, just staring at me, being like, hey, Crystal, isn't that the book that Jack Heath said that they liked? And so I decided to buy it, and it's been sitting there for 2 years now, and I have not picked it up, and that needs to change. This is from my understanding, a sci-fi book. I don't understand how when it involves probably chess-related jokes, but it is a sci-fi book about a man who wakes up in a park surrounded by dead bodies. His memory is gone, and, oh, it's a girl, I'm so sorry. She ends up in a park surrounded by dead bodies with her memory gone, and she must trust the instructions left by her former self in order to survive. Like, this sounds so intense. So I'm very excited for that one. Again, another chunker. Legend by Mari Lou, because I need to read this series. I am the last person on earth that has not read this series, and that needs to change immediately. One that has been on my TBR for too damn long. It stares at me every fucking time I walk past my shelves, and I know that I am going to love, but I feel like it's so backlist that if I don't read it, it just continues to stare at me longer. But also it's backlist, so when I pick it up, I feel embarrassed about the fact that I'm reading such a backlist book, and that is The Choosing by Rachel Decker. I haven't heard anyone really talk about this. All I know is it's probably released in like 2010. Let me double check this. 2010 is my guess. Oh my god, it's not as old as I think it is. It's 2015. But either way, it's still an old, it's like the 2015 dystopian time frame, which was where all my favorites were released. So I need to get this read. The only way I'm going to do that is if I put it on this list, so I prioritize it. Staring at me for too fucking long. That's the only reason why it's on this list. I know nothing about it other than it's one of those like post-apocalyptic worlds where people are chosen to do certain things. And this woman ends up being chosen and she's epic. Sounds like the right cup of tea to me. I'm carrying it over. Red Rising is coming with me to 2024 and it is getting read. I am making this happen, and if I don't make this happen, somebody please come and knock on my door and hit me across the head and tell me read Red Rising. I know I'm gonna love this. I know it's gonna be a 5-star read. I need to read it. It's going on my 2024 list. I'm getting angrier the more I realize these books needed to be read a long time ago, and I'm gonna love them, and why weren't they already read already? All right, I'm getting frustrated. I'm running out of time. My battery is dying. My daughter needs to be picked up. This is the final book of 2024, the 24th book on my list of 24 books for 2024 is Us Against You by Frederick Bookman. Another one that's been on 2 TBRs that I need to read because I know he's going to be a 5-star. Am I feeling like I'm repeating myself? Because I am. Frederick Bookman is one of my favorite authors. This series absolutely broke me when I read the first one. This one I know is going to be a little bit meh, but the third one is going to be fantastic. So I need to read the meh to get to the fantastic. So that's why I haven't read it yet, but I know I need to. So I'm putting it on here to encourage that. I am not going to try and lift that stack up because that's only half the stack. The other half is just sitting on the chair here. But that's 24 books that I want to read in 2024. Make me accountable. If you see that I'm putting other books on my TBRs, remind me in the comments. Hey, Crystal, didn't you say in February that you were going to read this book in 2024? Remind me, please, because I don't keep this separate to my TBR, so I always forget what I've put on this list. Really need to keep track of it somewhere. So you guys are gonna hold me accountable. Anyways, I am really hot standing in front of this light. I've been yelling and moving around. It is time for me to go pick up Addie, so that is what I'm gonna do. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you drop in the comments down below which you're most excited to see me read in 2024, what's on your list for 2024, and also if you don't have anything to drop and you just like to say something, you can drop a monster emoji in the comments down below because it's the first book I happen to grab. Without further ado, have a great weekend, happy reading, and see you next time. Bye!